the best thing out of art class was law.
Yeah.
At least that's what it was. Exactly. That's what it was in my case. So I was in art class. I knew that I didn't want to do anything sciences related. I knew from like GS2. And so when I was in art class in senior secondary school, it was just the suggestion of my parents, like, oh, what else are you going to study if not law? And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, fine. Law sounds great. I like I like law, let's do it. But of course, I didn't know at the time just how, much of a big deal that would be in practice. So yeah, that was how I
Yeah.
got into it.
I think a number of people can relate can relate with that.
Yeah.
So just to dive into our questions real quick. So um how did you make that deliberate decision to move into product management? Did you work in corporate law or litigation? I think I saw a picture of you in your wig and gown. Like, what was that like? When did you make that decision to transition?
Yeah. So the decision, you said deliberate decision. The
Was
decision
it a
to,
deliberate decision?
not really, right? I think for me, the decision came in like phases. The first thing
Okay.
was me knowing that I did not want to practice law full time. I just realized, I think by my 300 level, that I didn't have the same um passion towards the legal profession like
Mm,
I even did towards some of like extracurricular activities, like maybe mooting or debating or National Model United Nations, which I participated in not quite a number of extracurricular activities while I was in school. But I think the first thing to establish is I just discovered that I was not really in love with the theory of law, right? The whole going to court, and I have really brilliant classmates and colleagues, that learned colleagues, yes, that you can observe and see that this person really knows what they are doing when it comes to law. They
yeah.
are really interested in it. That was just never me. And the funny thing is, in the academic aspect, I did my best. I was like top 5% of my class, right? I did not fail to pass the exams, but I just
Yeah.
realized that it's not something that I was very interested in. Um, I think the second phase would be, now I know that I don't want to do law. So at what point do I want to stop pursuing law to explore other opportunities? Right. And that decision was sort of um crystallized when I finished my bar final exams.
Okay.
So I remember then in law school, I did my law school in Lagos. After the whole hustle to make sure that you get good grades and pass and everything, and you're done with your exams, one of the best days of your life as a lawyer. You're finally done
Yeah.
with your bar finals. Everybody was rejoicing, was like happy. People were rejoicing I still remember it vividly. My friends were even like just happy, relieved, everything. And I just went back to my room very sober. You will not know that I just finished one of the hardest exams of my life. I was just like, God. I legit, it was very dramatic. I came to the balcony, I said, God, now I'm done with the exam. I didn't drop out. I didn't stop before um the bar finals. I finished it, I completed it, I did the noble thing, but I know in my heart that this is not what I want to do. So what is the next step? Right. So I think that was for me the first place I realized, oh, I really have checked out mentally. I also want to mention before I hand over that some of the extracurricular activities that I did, now I know this in retrospect, they helped me to sort of build certain skills in addition to law that I realized were never going to leave me. So, for instance, I may not have liked litigation, I may not have liked land law, I may not have liked property law in theory, but there were things that I liked about law, like the craft of law, the ability to communicate clearly, the ability to advocate for people, Do you understand? The ability
Yeah.
to sort of sift through everything that is going on and find out what the real problem or what the real issue is with the information that is available to you. Those are things that any lawyer can do. So being a lawyer, sort of, or being in going through the legal practice and going through law helped me like that to think, right? And yeah, I think that was what made me feel a bit more confident, because of course I still had doubts that I could make that decision and explore other
Uh,
things. Mind you, I've not even said product yet, so it's not like I knew.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so like what then was the journey into products? What was the, the different phases that led you up to where you are right now?
Okay. It's a combination of just people taking a chance on me. I
Mm.
can't tell the story without mentioning that. And people also helping me see certain things about those skills or the way of thinking that I spoke about. And then me then beginning to see it myself. So I remember when I had spoken about I made a decision about wanting to not do law but explore other things at the end of law school. By NYC year, I decided it will make sense to explore other things. Right. So in that same year, I remember just talking to my sister about wanting to have the opportunity to have my PPA somewhere that's, yeah, I know it's still low. At this time I didn't have any other alternative but law. It's what
Yeah.
I've always known, right? But I wanted to have that flexibility. If I had worked in somewhere like Alukano Bode or any other place, it would have been more rigid. I would not have been able to explore other things. So what had happened was I was posted to work with a lawyer friend of hers who, you know, had a practice of his own. And so I was working with him.
Hmm.
Um, she had mentioned that I should consider product management, but it didn't really stick. That was probably my first time hearing about that at the time. And then I'm working with my um boss, and he's like, have you ever considered working in products? Now this is like the second time that someone
Second
is
time.
saying that
Yeah.
to me. Exactly. So it got me a lot more curious about it. um I remember there was one time I was online and then I saw something about product management. But then the poster had you take like series of tests, just random tests. And then I did the test just for fun. And I got, I think I got 4/5 or 5/5. And then she goes, if you got 4/5 and above, you should definitely consider a career in products. At this point, I'm like, all of this is happening within the space of like 3 months. I already started working in law. So it made me pause and just be like, okay, let's explore what is here. Everybody's saying products, you do well with products. I just I had not done any research about it, but it made me curious to start finding more about what product is. I realize now in retrospect that they probably considered things just around maybe how I handle other things
Yeah.
and how I think, to say, okay, I think you will do well as a product manager, and that's it.
Mm. Okay, so just for the people who may be watching this much later, people who do not know, what does product management entail? Like, what's the scope of it?
Okay, so the scope of product management, not to sound cliche, it's really about managing the life cycle of a product. Um, so depending on the field you're working in, um, it might be one specific product or a set of features or a set of products, right, that are related. And it's essentially managing the entire life cycle of that product from inception to, I don't want to say completion because it never really
Never
ends, right?
ends. Yeah.
Even after you go to the market, you still are in sort of need to still manage how the product is doing, feedback, iteration, and all of that. So from the ideation phase to the implementation phase, working with teams to build something, then the phase of actually testing, being sure that what you have built is what you wanted to build, right? The ideation phase, of course, involves your documentation, putting down what you actually want to um, deliver to the users. It also involves gathering information from the people who are going to be using the product to be sure that you're building what's going to be relevant to them in the market. Um, then post testing, you have the actual go to market, and that involves marketing, that involves sales. So you would notice that I mentioned different teams. It's not just products.
Yeah.
There's the engineering, there's sales, there's marketing, there's compliance, there's business. So it's really just working with people, working with stakeholders to deliver this entire life cycle, and working with the business as well. So pretty
Hmm.
much.
So I heard you mention compliance, and that's not something that's strange to the legal world. So what
Yeah.
other skills were able to help you out when you started in product, and where the law just completely step back and be like, yeah, yeah, wait, have to figure this out.
What other skills were able to help me in product? The first one, which is usually the most common one, I would say, is communication, just effective communication. So there's something about law that teaches us to not just say something, but communicate and confirm that what we have communicated is what was received,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're not loose with communication. You want to be very clear. Sometimes it means going out of your way to, clearly spell something out so that it's not misinterpreted. Do you
Yeah.
understand? So that'll be the first thing. Another thing is, I would say, stakeholder management. I feel like a lot of law can be, and I'm trying to do that measurement between law and product just for people that are listening. Like, so you can also see how you even fit into.
Mhm. Okay, I think we had a little bit of an interference on Dolapo's end. But in the meantime, if you're not here yet, make sure that you can share this to your friends. We're having a pretty interesting conversation here. And for those who are not, people who are just joining us, now is a great time for you to get to know us at the Evolving Lawyer series. Like our name goes, we are having conversations with people who have studied law, who have done the whole thing, LLB to BL, and um, they've just decided to go another route, right? So what does this actually look like in practice? What fields are lawyers who have gotten the whole thing, maybe even started a career in law? What fields are they getting into, and how does this work for them? And then for the people who are maybe lost students on this call, or even young lawyers or lawyers who have worked a couple of years and are looking to transition, this just caters to everybody because you never know what the possibilities are. So while we wait for Dolapo to come back on, let's make sure to share the link. I will be sharing the link again.
Hello. Hi. Can anyone hear me? I hope I'm audible. Okay, okay. I can see some thumbs up. Thank you. Amy, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'll just wait for Amy to come back. Thank you. Let's wait for Amy to come back.
Okay. All right. I think we're good to go again.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. What was the last thing you heard? So I can just pick up from there.
You were talking about the mix of skills that you were able to put together to help you out in products and trying to make, draw a line.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So we're talking about transferable skills. Um, the second thing I'd mentioned effective communication. The second thing would
Stakeholder.
be stakeholder management. So in law, you are doing that in some way when you have to balance the interest of your clients with maybe what the law says, so preempting maybe the judge,
Mhm.
to even talking to or relating with people on behalf of your clients, etc, etc, etc. That is something that is very, very key in product. You're constantly having to relate with different teams who many times would have different priorities. So from engineering to sales, marketing, even the business, right? So that legal training helped me to develop that muscle where you are approaching conversations thoughtfully, and you're talking to different sets of people towards the same goal but in different languages, if I do say
Yeah.
so. I think another thing would be, it's also, this is a bit more abstract, but it helps me to, or currently helps me to, think in a very structured manner. A lot of the information you might get could be complex information or just something ambiguous that is not fully formed, and you have to work with it, either a request or just feedback or a business need. So it's just analyzing complex information, being able to communicate clearly what this information is to the different teams, being able to identify risks or potential, we call it edge cases, potential edge cases, being
Mm-hmm.
able to ask the right questions, right? I was not really a fan of litigation, probably still am not. I don't know if I will ever be, but it's I never say never. But I think it's something that comes up in court where it's like, so you want to ask the right questions. That's something that I definitely would say transferred. Being able to say why, because again, in products, many times you have to make decisions with incomplete information, which is one major difference. Defending why you made that decision clearly, right? With a story that makes sense is another thing that I would say transferred. And I think just generally staying calm under pressure. There's a lot of pressure. Sometimes things are on fire, this one is going on, but the whole of law itself is pressure. People's lives many
Yeah.
times are at stake, right? So I think that would be a summary of the skills
The
that,
transferable
law
skills.
helped, yeah, to transfer.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for that. But how about these are things that were transferred? How about things that you had to unlearn? Were there any things that
Things
you
that I
had to
had to
unlearn?
unlearn. Um, there are one or two. So, I mentioned that products many times is you having to deal with incomplete information or nothing, stuff that are not fully formed, or it's a little bit of the opposite, right? If you're going to, if you have any case or any matter before you, you very often want to gather all the information
Yeah.
around similar scenarios. We deal a lot with precedents in law, right? Where has this come up before? What did the courts decide? How can I use that in this my matter? Many times there's a confidence you have going into court or dealing with a matter based on what you have gathered in the law, that don't worry, we'll win this. Once we present this, right? We have a higher chance of dealing with this. So that certainty that comes with law, that if I just have everything I need, once I get everything I need and it is exhaustive, I will be able to deal with this, is something that even in the early stages of my products career, I had to gradually unlearn that. Oh, there are times when we would need to act faster than just waiting till we have everything, right? This is where things like maybe MVP, putting out the first version of something works, right? And getting feedback and then seeing how that works, seeing how it's taken, and then you iterate on that. That's something that I had to unlearn. I think also just learning that um perfectionism might like just have wanting to have everything fully spelled out, fully thought out, right? You would do a lot of thinking and you would need to think
Mm.
critically, but you would also need to learn that even with not having 100%, many times you would need to make a decision. You would need to
Yeah.
move. You would need to like move with imperfect information. I think that's one key difference and something that even now I still have to like remember
Yeah.
oftentimes when I work with people. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Just in case anyone is just joining us, welcome to another episode of the Evolving Lawyer series. We are spotlighting lawyers who have taken the non-linear path. Today's conversation is with Dolapo Agbakosi, who's a product manager at Cora, and she's working on payments infrastructure that moves money all around the world. So we're just going to like circle back to what you actually do with payments. What has navigating different um regulatory regulatory what's the word now, regulatory environments, right? What
Okay.
does that look like?
Okay.
Yeah, does that affect you directly as a product manager?
Okay. So the question is what has navigating different regulatory done to me as a product manager. So um I'm assuming you're asking this just in terms of my involvement as a product
Yeah,
person or
yeah,
how it relates to. Okay. So again, the beautiful thing about products is you don't do it alone.
yeah,
Yes, you're trying to ship, you're trying to um work, build something and all of that, but you do it with people. You work with teams. And in the case of regulatory markets, there are actually teams for this, right? And while a big part of my work is working with them cross functionally to see how the decisions that we make affect how we prioritize certain things, affect how we build out what we need to again prioritize for that market depending on where we're going.
yeah,
um the the teams responsible for the decision making usually would be the compliance team, depending on the risk that needs to be taken or the matters
yeah,
or the facts that need to be considered. Right. Yes. So that's one way. Another way that it has impacted is um you learn very fast when you start going to different African markets because markets are Nigeria is very different from many other African markets that you would find, especially when it comes to payments. At least that's what I've seen, right, in my short experience. So you want to really understand how a market works before you go in. Many times, of course, based on this collaboration between legal compliance products, it would influence how you build certain things, right? It influences you prioritizing building responsibly, shipping responsibly, as opposed to just building something fast to get a quick win,
yeah,
right? I think that comes up that's especially important in payments because you're dealing with people's money, right? Any small mistake can affect the entire business. You're dealing with funds that belong to customers. You're dealing with reconciliation. How okay um now we've processed funds. How do we get it? Stuff like that, right? So
yeah.
it's important to do work well and do it fast as a product manager, but that sustainability and execution actually matters way more. And I think that's something that's top of mind when I think of relations, environments. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's it's pretty interesting to see how, in my head, it kind of felt like, oh, maybe if you're with the product team or you're a lawyer, and then there's still a legal or compliance team, and you're looking at your people like, oh yeah, like hi guys, I used to be you, but I'm not you anymore.
Lol.
That kind of thing. But so let's take the conversation towards the maybe the younger generation, right? People who are maybe still in law school, or people who are in undergrad, and they're looking at this thing like, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, right? If somebody wanted to get into products, especially, what would be maybe like a 6, 3, or 12-month plan? How do they actually kick off?
Okay. I think the thing to note is that uh your path does not need to be linear, right? I'm using this as a preamble because you mentioned people maybe who are currently in law school or who are currently studying law. I know that fear firsthand. I know that doubt firsthand of just not wanting to move towards something that is new or unfamiliar or so different from the prestigious law, right? Which I still think is prestigious, by the way. But if you remember what I said at the beginning about certain things that you can get from law, aside the theory, which is the craft, the way of thinking, the way of approaching problems or matters, those things come up. I would say you have to stay curious, right? And just don't let that be like a barrier. Because I honestly truly believe that anybody that can achieve anything. And I'm not saying that lightly. Like if you decide today, I want to be an astronaut, you just need to chart the path. The path. Do you understand? And
Yeah.
it will take time, right? But it's achievable, especially with God on your side. So that's what I would say. So for a 12-month plan, which is about a year, um, if I were to break it down in quarters, I think the first 3 months is the beautiful thing is now we have internet and we have a lot more information. I don't know if, like I mentioned, how I didn't even know about product until it was introduced to me, but now product is very, very common, right? So just learning what you can from the internet, taking courses, asking questions, even talking to people that are already in the field. I've always be a fan of learning directly from the actual work than just theory, at least after a while. So
Mhm.
um, also start interacting with products differently, right? So your curiosity should show up in, now I'm just in product management. I wonder what the team was thinking when they built this out. Maybe you bring up your PiggyVest app, or you know your bank app, or your maybe an app for reading, like just learning or being curious about how products come together. So observing it, you might want to read articles, um, follow product voices, those things. And I think I already mentioned taking a course, right?
Yeah.
The second quarter would be and if you can do this in the first quarter, by all means. But by the 4 to 6 months, you want to start um, trying to get your hands on real product work, whether it's through an internship, volunteering to work on something. Just make sure that you're building actual exposure, something practical. Again, intern. I started as an intern. I think I mentioned earlier about someone taking a chance on me, Tony, right? I started as an intern, work with startups. I started in a startup as well because usually there's a lot to do,
Yeah.
um, and you need to do it in a period of time. Start practice, start practicing what maybe writing a PRD is like. Take a product that you use on a daily basis, break it down, tear it down. You must have heard of, well, you should research if you've not heard of product tear down. practice that, right? Um, 7 to 9, I would say. Hopefully by this time you're already interning, right? Um, understand or try to get deeper understanding of metrics, data analysis, how that shows up in how you manage products. A big part of product management is also working with people. So how designers think, how business teams can impact your work and where you come in. Um, learn stakeholder management very deeply, context of product management. Um,
Yeah.
by the end of the year, by the fourth quarter, I would suggest if you're interning, just keep at it because at this point you want to start. I feel very in the right you start also creating your growth plan for the time for more stuff that would throw you deeper into product. Uh, consist be very very consistent. Be really, just keep showing up. I'm thinking back to my year for the similar path. The only that
Sorry, Dolapo, I don't know if it's my network, but you're breaking up a little bit.
okay. Is that still happening? Can anybody else confirm if
Okay,
that's me?
I think we're stable now.
Okay, we're good. Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was saying that in my own journey, I had to learn on the job. So you might want to prioritize making sure that you, as much as possible, do everything you can to get an internship. Every other thing will fall in place. Yeah.
You mentioned this thing about working with startups. That doesn't really have a lot of good PR these days because of maybe like some work
Well,
environments and the culture and all of that. Do you still is that something you would still lean very heavy on, or that's just because of the barrier to entry being low?
let me tell you the the experience that I had with working with a startup that I'm very grateful for. It was that thing that a different person would define as toxic. And
Mm.
even though that might sound privileged, I mean, I knew that I was coming. It was like imagine starting from scratch, having done law all your life. I I had a clear goal. And I think that's what is informing how I'm communicating this. You have a clear goal. You want to learn products. If I remember telling my manager then, Dr. Toyi, that he felt like being thrown into an ocean and then they expect you to learn how to swim. And that's how you actually
Mm-hmm.
develop the muscle or the ability to swim. Exactly. So it really does stretch you. But that's the whole point, right? You would learn a lot about working with people. If possible, it should not even be remote or fully remote because those things, yes, those things help you. Those things help you with just interacting with people, working with people, right? I'm grateful that I had the privilege of working physically first, then hybrid before fully remote because there's so many things that I would probably not have learned if I didn't have that
Mm.
physical work setting. I didn't spend a lot of time in law, so it's I've been like, oh, so all my life I've been remote, but that's just me. That's just my opinion,
Yeah.
right? So I would say that working with startups just help you to. There's many times the problems are usually more frequent. You have a lot more to deal with, to analyze, to learn from. to learn about. Your customers are real. You are getting many times real feedback, from the people you are building the product for, stuff you can work with. You are seeing real challenges that the business is facing, and if you have the privilege of being informed, or you're curious enough to find out, you can always start to build that product thinking ability
Yeah.
that can help you build that muscle as well. So, yeah, I would still say
So
if
just
you can
focus on
start
focus
up
on the
now.
goal you have in
If you,
mind.
if, yes, like with anything else in life, focus on your goal. You can have a plan to live afterwards. If you have the opportunity to work in a non-startup product environment, by all means, take it. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like startups are just easier to get into. Do you understand? Because of um the barrier of entry, like you said. So.
Yeah. Mm. All right then. We're jotting things down. As we
Mhm.
quickly move towards the end of this conversation, let's also look at still looking at people who are younger and are still maybe thinking, I don't want to leave law, but can I do a couple more interesting things within it? Do you have any experience or have people that you can make reference to that are still lawyers but just still doing other non-conventional things?
Of course. So you're talking about people who still want to do law,
Yeah.
but non-litigation, probably non-conventional law. Yeah, sure. Even where I work, there's a there's a legal team. So this is a fintech, but then legal team. So the law that you're doing day to day is dealing with, again, you see a lot of things around market regulations, contracts, MSAs, and all of that. So you can, like, it's very valid, right, that you want to do that. The real thing to ask yourself is, how can I practice law in a way that is still meaningful to me? So I have friends that are lawyers in fintech, they are lawyers in maybe marketing agency, um, even in tech, but in compliance team, right? So that's something you can definitely
Mm.
consider. Legal, working in-house, like as a
Yeah,
in-house
in-house counsel.
lawyer, is still very much a thing. Exactly, it's still very much a thing. In fact, before the consideration of products ever came in, I used to want to work as an in-house lawyer. I just knew that it was anything but litigation. I just knew that it was anything but that day-to-day law theory. Yes, so that's something that you can definitely explore as well. If any industry needs a lawyer, whether it's in sports, entertainment, aviation, oil and gas. You understand? So definitely something you
Yeah.
can um explore. You don't need to feel like you have to limit yourself to I think if this entire session summarizes anything, is that don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. You don't necessarily need to leave law to know that you don't have to be limited to explore different options. And depending on the stage you are in your career, the earlier you take the risk, the better. There's some things that I did that year that I would have felt more restrained to do if I was already 10 years into my career, right?
Yeah.
Just in terms of decision making and risk taking, and just saying, oh, is this going to work out? There was a part of my mind that was like, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work out, I still pay legal fees. I
Yeah.
still have my customer certificate and everything. Like, I'm still a lawyer, so I can always do that. But then you try it, it works out, and then it opens your mind to see that I can try anything else and it can work
Mhm.
out. So why not? So yeah.
But how about people who have already gone maybe like 3 to 5, 1 to 5 years within their career? How do they begin to set course for a transition? Especially because, like you said, it could feel a lot more restraining and a lot riskier to want to transition out
Yeah.
of a career path.
Okay. I think the first thing I would say is the risk would not, like, the risk is constant. The level of risk in your head might change. Your willingness to take the risk might vary depending on the point you are in, but the risk would always be there. But again, you want to always look at proof of concept. Are there people who have studied or started or been in the legal career for years and then pivoted to do something else? 100%. Right. So that's the
Mhm.
first thing, that mental model you need to deal with. And the second thing would be um what's the plan? What's the plan? If you've made a decision that you want to leave law, of course you have your why. So you want to put out a plan. So for the next few months or 6 months, this is what I'm going to do, this is the skill I'm going to grow. It would take extra hours because now you need to do this side by side your legal career. I typically would not advise quitting just so you can focus fully on this thing,
Yeah.
but try doing it side by side, right? To just see um how far your exploration or your curiosity can take you, right? So you explore it. If you get an opportunity, talk about it to people who could potentially get your foot in the room and take it on from there. But that don't you're never gonna feel 100% ready to take this step. But if you have you've made a decision that you want to take the step, you should know that it's very possible to do it. It will take, of course, extra effort, but I would say go for it still. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So take risks and succeed.
Take risk and succeed.
All right. So on a bit of a lighter note, when I was doing my research for, this session, I also saw that, outside of products, you also make music. Has law
Hmm.
come into that? And are there any ways that law has also like showed up in how you do your music or the business, if at all there is one?
If I understand your question, you're asking if law has come up in my music in any
Yeah,
way.
like yeah, on the back end, clearing all of that.
The answer is no.
Really?
The answer is no, or at least not yet, because for me, music is first ministry. I love it. I have a passion. You can wake me up from sleep without paying me to sing and release music, and I would happily do it.
Yeah.
So that's I've not seen any way that's the because if law would come in, it would be the business, the
Yeah,
contracts, the
business
all
side
of
of
that.
things. Nothing like that. Okay,
Nah,
fair enough. So
nothing
what
like
if
that
you
so
were
far.
to sit down with Dolapo in 300 level and you were just, maybe in your class thinking about your life and just showed up at the way you are right now and you sat down with her, what would you tell her about where you are right now?
Please can you take that again? The line is breaking.
Okay, can you hear me?
I'm struggling to hear you.
Okay, let me see. Okay, can you?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay, waiting for my camera to come on, but yeah,
Okay.
are we good to go?
I still can't hear you in case you're speaking.
Okay, I'm speaking now. I saw a thumbs up, so I think we're clear. Let me see. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. I had to switch my network
Okay,
at some
so
point. I thought maybe it might be me.
oh, okay, okay. Yeah. So I was saying, if you could sit down with yourself for maybe like 300 level, one day you're sitting in class and you from the future just appears to her and sits her down, what would you say? What would you say to her about where you are and the steps, as encouragement?
300 level is so specific because I think that was the year I started considering I don't know if I want to do this law thing. So if I could talk to myself in 300 level, the first thing I'll let her know is that she should not be afraid, right? She should not be afraid. She should give law her best. She should really just, put her mind in it. And I'm glad that she did that. Um, if she had any concerns about like how to utilize law in the real life or in the real world, I'll tell her that what I tell people all the time, even today, which is your law degree can never be a waste,
Mm,
right? It will show up in many ways when you decide to pivot. It will show up in the way you think. It will show up in the way that you speak. It will show up in the way that you make decisions, just in case you think that it's going to be a mistake. And this is again not just for product, any other thing you choose to pivot to, business analysis, projects, um, um, marketing. Do you understand? It's going to show up in it. I have colleagues. I think law. You know what? I will get to this. Let me just answer my
yeah.
300 level yield first. The first thing is the next thing would be stay curious, ask a lot of questions, do a lot of research. Um, if something, trust your gut. Yes, trust your gut, trust your intuition. Because I remember then wondering if the reason why I felt that sort of discomfort around the wanting to practice law, even if at the time everybody around me just seemed to know, oh, they want to be a lawyer. These were I said brilliant people that just knew they were going to study law. I just had this maybe not, right? Because there are other things that come naturally to me that are related to law that are not even tied to the theory of law. So yeah, stay curious, trust your gut, and know that you have your whole life ahead of you to build a career. There's a tendency to see people online and think, wow, just like that. But building careers is a lot more gradual process. So many things would take years, right? And everybody is actually figuring out things in real time. So don't be tempted to think that everybody knows what they are doing. We're all just figuring things out day by day, many
Yeah.
times. You don't need to have everything mapped out before actually taking the next step or deciding this is what you're going to do next. That's what I would tell her. Many times the clarity that you are looking for will not be before you move, it will be after you move. And then you now know, okay, so what's the next step to take? Should I step back? Should I keep moving forward? Should I move left? Should I exactly? So yeah.
And then you were saying something that you could have digressed in before you.
Yes. Now the digression. The digression is that I was just thinking about how now I see quite a number of people that I went to school together with. We studied law together. But then the amount of diverse things they're doing, it's like my that theory about transferable skills from law is actually so valid. I think
Mm.
law is one of the best things because I'm still very I'm loyal as I can be to the profession.
Yeah.
My friends that actually practice law today think I've betrayed the profession, but no, I'm actually loyal because I do believe that as a lawyer you can be anything. I can't say that about every other course or every other
Yeah.
profession. It teaches us a lot about how to think. Law teaches us a lot about how to interact with people. Law teaches us a lot about how to process information and how to deliver that information. Do you get? I have learned colleagues that have become HR professionals. HR. Some have become country managers for different businesses. Do you
Yeah.
understand? So that's what I wanted to see.
So at the end of the day, skills are transferable.
Definitely.
You can the sky is the limit, as they would usually say. And
Yeah, it's even your starting point, Seth.
and I think I really like the idea about how we're figuring things out in real time, because there's
Yeah.
that tendency, open LinkedIn, proud to announce everywhere, and it can feel a lot, make you feel like you're probably not moving forward or something, but
Yeah,
ultimately it's really nice to hear that you can still figure things out. Yeah, and I think that's
definitely.
also a problem. Like people think that there's a limited time to figure things out.
Mm.
Like, oh, if I reach this particular stage and this hasn't worked out, then maybe I'm not, maybe I'm failing or something like that.
No, we need to resist the urge to put that sort of limitation on ourselves. I don't think I've gotten to the I've not seen the end of the things that I can do. I'm very, very,
Mm-hmm.
very young in my career, if you ask me. So it's products today does not mean it to be products forever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because pivoting
Yeah,
has showed me that I can decide to pivot tomorrow and still take the skills that I have from law and from product into something else.
into something else.
Depending on what it is that piques my interest tomorrow. So definitely don't limit yourself. I remember one time as an intern, I'll tell this story and then I'll hand over. I was just one of those days. I'd had so many back to back hard days where it was just like, this thing is hard, like I don't know. And do you know what I was calling hard? My lack of information.
Mm.
Right? Of course, I'm starting new in something. There's so many things that I need to learn, and learning would mean failing a couple of times, getting
Yeah.
it wrong, getting it right, working with people, figuring things out, wondering if you are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's what learning is, right? And so one day I was in the office with my manager and I asked, in a moment of vulnerability, but do you ever feel like you don't know what you're doing? I don't even know why it crossed my mind to ask that so boldly. She's like, do you ever feel like you don't know what you're doing? And the way you answered me just gave me so much confidence. Like, none of us actually really know what we're doing, right? And we're just figuring it out. Now, you should know that that is contextual.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a reason he was my manager at the time. He has more technical knowledge. He has more experience. He knows, some things in his sleep that I'll probably still need to figure out on the way. However, at the end of the day, your where you are is still a learning phase. Do you understand? And that's desire to know more, to want to know more, because you have a goal, you have a picture in mind, and you're not there yet. You can feel like you will never get there, or you don't really know what you're doing. But the truth is, as long as you're determined to stay curious, keep learning, keep asking questions, keep opening your mind to getting information
Mhm.
and making mistake, not being too hard on yourself when you make a mistake, seeing it as an opportunity to correct it for the next time, then you'll be fine. That gave me so much. See, this was years ago, but I've not forgotten it, and I don't think I'll ever forget. It just
Yeah.
opened my mind to see that even the people that you see and admire, like, oh my God, it must be so nice, they must be the smartest people in the world. Sometimes it's just them using the experience that they've gathered over time to figure out this problem in front of them, and then do the same for tomorrow, and then do the same for the day after. And then
Yeah.
you can do the same at the level you are at, because we all have brains that God made, and I think everybody is, to a very good extent, brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the last thing, something just crossed my mind, and I felt like I feel like I want to hear your opinion regarding that. So I was having a conversation with someone who said that people who are more likely to, in this profession, if you don't have the double first class, then your prospects of actually getting into these high, maybe the tier one firms, and then you now start looking at, okay, what are my options? So the person was like that, or usually people who are looking for these non-linear paths are the ones that are not able to hit that milestone. So they now have to start
Wow,
looking
wow,
for where
wow.
else they are going to enter. So what do you think about that?
Are you asking me to tell you if I was an Olodo or not?
Oh no, no, no. I'm just saying the concept. No, no, I don't even think anybody's an Olodo in this profession, man. Like as long as you pass through law school, like you're up there in my books. Because we all know that the 2-1 can be, or the 2-2 can be all A's and 1C. So
Oh my
it's
God.
crazy like that.
Obviously, I would say that that's false. I know a lot of brilliant people that um just decided they didn't want to do law again. I know
Yeah,
people that have been in law for a while and decided they didn't want to practice. I think if I remember my CGPA, I mentioned to you that I still tried to pass law.
yeah, in undergrad, yeah.
I finished with a 4.2, and
That's
I
solid.
decided I'm going to give my parents their wig and gown because they worked hard, they paid my school fees.
Yeah,
That's why I went to law school, and I finished with, I think it was second. I don't know how, I don't remember the grades, but I think the equivalent of second class upper.
wow.
And I was like, oh, I'm not doing, I didn't have first class. I
Yeah,
would say. So, but then again, I was not, like, I was doing the best I could with what I had,
yeah.
right? And um I still was sure that I did not want to pursue,
Mm,
right? I had moments of doubt where it's like, if I if I don't make it in these other things I'm exploring, at least I can come back.
you can fall back on, yeah,
I exactly, but I'm pretty sure that I don't want to do that again. I won't say I will never do it. I just said I don't want to do it.
yeah.
So never say never.
For the foreseeable future.
Before you see me post, I'm proud to announce that I'm starting at a legal, and then you say I lied. I just said I don't know what the future holds. But yeah, I'll definitely say that that's not 100% accurate.
Yeah,
You can excel in law and decide. In fact, you excelling in law is baseline, is foundational to show you that you can excel in anything else, like we've been saying.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. All right, that's our time. Thank you very much, everyone who stayed through to the end of this call. Thank you so much, Dolapo, for
Thank you.
for your insights and for sharing your journey and your experience with us. Um, I really, really look forward to the effects of this course, what everybody else has to say about it, and the inspiration that this has stirred up in people's hearts as well. So, guys, as we close off, this has been the Evolving Lawyer series. This is our 5th episode so far, and I'm really glad that you stayed through with us. For people who joined recently and who have been here since the beginning, make sure to stay connected with us on our socials, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on the WhatsApp community as well. We have many, many more Evolving Lawyers coming our way. So with that, have a fantastic evening and a great 5-second weekend ahead. All right, guys. Bye, everyone.